Esteemed Secretary General, distinguished friend Jens, distinguished members of the press, as a Mediterranean ally, it is a pleasure for us to host the NATO Secretary General, the North Atlantic Council, and our Mediterranean dialogue partners in our country. This year is the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Mediterranean Dialogue. Mediterranean Dialogue is a concrete example of the special relationship that Turkey has established with different centers and geographies due to its historic legacy and strategic location. Hosting this joint meeting in the 25th anniversary of the Mediterranean Dialogue is actually a result of Turkey's multilateral and enterprising foreign policy. Distinguished members of the press, we must act together to be successful in combating terrorism and irregular migration. We should understand that we cannot achieve results through selective approaches in these issues. We must act in accordance with the international law and refrain from unilateral steps in fighting against common threats. Furthermore, we must take into account the realities of our region. In the meeting, we put forward some suggestions to further develop the practical cooperation with our Mediterranean Dialogue partners. We express that in this context, we can provide further training and cooperation possibilities to our partners in the fields of security and defense. As you also followed, our President addressed the participants and explained our vision for the region. Our President received the NATO Secretary General. They have made a meeting today at his office. He received the Secretary General. He conveyed our priorities and expectations from NATO in this meeting. In the meeting, the priority issues for NATO summit to be held in London in December were discussed. Distinguished members of the press, NATO Council and our partners will visit Hatay tomorrow, which is one of the most important ancient cities of the Mediterranean basin. And I hope that in Hatay they will enjoy their time. Furthermore, in Hatay there are populations from different religions, from different ethnic groups and different sects. These communities are working in harmony there, and they will be bearing witness to this harmony. Today, all members of the Council are going to Hatay, and I saw how enthusiastic they were, how excited they were to be going to Hatay in this meeting. And in this sense, in Hatay, they are going to see the southern-originated challenges and threats faced by our country, primarily irregular migration and terrorism. They will be informed through presentations. I would like to thank the Secretary General once more, the members of the Council, and our Mediterranean Dialogue partners, and I leave the floor to distinguished Secretary General. Jens.
Thank you so much, Minister Çavuşoğlu. Dear Mevlüt, it is great to be back here in Ankara with you, and thank you for your warm welcome. Thank you for hosting the North Atlantic Council and our Mediterranean partner countries. And let me also thank you for your leadership and the strong commitment to our NATO alliance. Turkey is one of the countries I have visited most times as Secretary General, and it's always a great pleasure to come back here. Turkey is an important and highly valued NATO ally. You make essential contributions to security of the whole alliance, to our collective defense and our shared security. Together we have made great progress in the fight against terrorism. The liberation of all territory held by Daesh is a historic achievement. But there is still work to be done. NATO AVAX surveillance aircraft fly from Konya in support of the global coalition to defeat Daesh. And NATO's training mission in Iraq is strengthening the Iraqi security forces to ensure that Daesh can never return. I welcome that Turkey is playing a key role in our training mission in Iraq. Turkey is also one of the biggest contributors to our research support mission in Afghanistan, helping to ensure the country never again becomes a safe haven for international terrorists. Turkey is also helping to build stability in the Western Balkans as part of NATO's peacekeeping operation in Kosovo. I want to express my condolences for the losses that Turkey has suffered in the recent days. NATO allies stand with Turkey as it faces serious security challenges. We help protect Turkey with air and missile defense systems. We have enhanced patrols by AWACS planes over Turkish territory. Over the years, NATO has invested more than $5 billion in military facilities in Turkey. This includes important infrastructure such as airfields, naval bases and radar sites. And last month's meeting of foreign ministers of NATO in Washington, we agreed a new package of measures to enhance the security of the Black Sea region. These activities make us all more safe and secure. So we are grateful for the strong contributions Turkey is making to our shared security to NATO, but at the same time NATO is also providing strong support for our NATO allied Turkey. I want to thank Turkey and you personally for hosting this 25th anniversary meeting of NATO's Mediterranean Dialogue. With instability in the Middle East and North Africa, this dialogue is more valuable than ever. Today we discuss the security challenges in the region and how we can provide a greater security for our people. Bordering Syria and Iraq, Turkey has been the NATO ally most exposed to violence and turmoil from the Middle East. You continue to host more refugees than any other NATO ally, including more than 3.6 million refugees from Syria. And with your support, NATO continues to play a part in countering people smuggling and cutting the lines of illegal migration. So, Minister, dear Mevlüt, as an alliance, we are further strengthening our collective deterrence and defense, and we are projecting stability beyond our borders. Turkey continues to play a key role in both. And allies stand with you in strong solidarity. Thank you once again for hosting us and for your strong commitment to our alliance. Thank you. Thank you.
Nisa Yıldırım, diplomatic correspondent at Turkish Radio Television, TRT Haber. I have a question for Mr. NATO Chief and Mr. Çavuşoğlu. What do you think about Turkey's suggestion of forming a joint committee to probe America's concern that S-400 is a potential threat to F-35? And also, Mr. NATO Chief, you have indicated yesterday that buying S-400 is Turkey's decision, but allies should cooperate together. Can you please explain what did you mean by saying that? Also, do you think it can create a problem in practical sense? Thank you.
It is the decision by every NATO ally what kind of military equipment they buy. But at the same time, I am concerned about the potential consequences of the decision to buy S-400. The US, because the US has made it clear that they will impose sanctions. So this is an issue which has been addressed several times, both in my meetings in Washington and in Ankara. And I hope that it is possible to find a solution, because we have to avoid coming in a situation where one NATO ally is imposing sanctions against another. What matters for and what is important for NATO is, of course, the importance of interoperability, that the systems can work together. And I also welcome the fact that Turkey is now in dialogue both with Italy and France, looking into the possibility of buying a Eurosam system, SAM-T. We also know that Italy has deployed SAM-T, air missile defense systems, in Turkey already as part of the NATO support for Turkey. And I also welcome the fact that there are contacts, dialogue between Turkey and the United States on potential delivery of Patriot batteries. So I welcome the contact, the dialogue between two highly valued NATO allies, the United States and Turkey, on different ways to try to solve this issue.
Sorunuz için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Türkiye'nin hava
Thank you very much for your question.
ne kadar ihtiyaç duyduğunu en iyi NATO
I think it is NATO that knows best how much Turkey is in need of air defense systems, and NATO Secretary General would know this best because NATO is closely following the threats in our region, and the determinations about the threats are very evident. And in order to be in solidarity with Turkey, the other allies were asked to place their batteries in our borders, and NATO played a pivotal role because of these threats. But Secretary General knows this very well, that some of our allies, the United States and Germany and the Netherlands especially, have withdrawn the batteries in our region. But why did NATO send these batteries to our borders in the first place? Why did NATO ask the allies? Because Turkey currently does not have its own air defense system. We would like to thank Spain and Italy for providing Patriot and Santi batteries, again upon the request of NATO, and this was actually indeed a sign of being allies and friendship, and they are still keeping their batteries here. But we are in urgent need of an air defense mechanism, a system. This cannot continue like this. For the last 10 years, we always wanted to buy it. Who did we want to buy it from? We wanted to buy it from our allies. But why couldn't we buy it? Because our allies did not sell it to us. They were not able to sell it for this reason or that reason. So in order to cover our needs, we made offers to various countries, and we received the offers from Russia, the other countries, and Russia provided the best offer. And Secretary General already made a statement about that. So we are also taking into account the claims put forward by another ally, but we are also saying very clearly that those claims are also not correct. But what I am saying on this issue and what the United States is saying on this issue, meaning what the politicians are saying, maybe you may not attach much importance to that because we are politicians. That is why we proposed to create a working group, an interim working group that is composed of technical staff, and we have conveyed this on various levels to our allies. So if the United States is sincere with these concerns, and if they do not have a different agenda in the background, then they would accept this offer. The experts, technical experts, would sit down, make a review, they study it, and they prepare a report, give one copy to NATO and one copy to us, and then we can all see whether these claims are true or not. So if we are open to cooperation and dialogue, we would be actually finding answers to all the questions that we have in our mind. Actually, everything is very clear in our mind, but I think all the questions that are in the minds of all the hesitant countries, primarily the United States, would be cleared away. Can you give us a more constructive approach? Turkey would never accept a language of sanctions. We would reject it, and we would never bow down to any impositions. If they are open to cooperation and dialogue, we are ready to work with the United States. Any other approach we do not think would be right. My question is also for Mr. Stoltenberg. The cooperation, how do you evaluate the current situation of the cooperation between NATO and EU and Turkey, that is not a member state to the European Union? Do you have any efforts to include Turkey as a non-EU member state into this cooperation activities? What kind of expectations do you have from the European Union? And Mr. Çavuşoğlu, what do you expect from the European Union in this regard?
So I support and welcome the fact that we have strengthened the cooperation between the European Union and NATO. This is good for the whole of NATO. It's good for the European Union. And we work together in many different areas, such as cybersecurity, hybrid threats, maritime activities, and we have parallel exercises, and we also work together with partners. So we do more together than we've done for actually ever done before. But I think also we have to realize that when we also welcome that EU do more, for instance, on defense, new defense initiatives such as PESCO and also the structured cooperation between EU members on defense and also the European Defence Fund. It has been clearly stated from me and from NATO many times, and also from EU leaders, that this should be done in a way which doesn't duplicate the efforts of NATO. The EU can never be an alternative to NATO, cannot substitute NATO, and we have to make sure that the EU efforts on defense are done in ways which are transparent, and also, of course, to aim at include non-EU allies in the largest possible way, because the security of Europe is dependent on NATO, and that will especially be the case after Brexit, because then 80% of NATO's defense expenditure will come from non-EU allies. The United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom in the west. You have countries like Norway and Iceland in the north, and you have, of course, Turkey in the south. These nations, these countries are important for the security of Europe. So EU efforts cannot replace, cannot substitute for NATO, and it is important that EU efforts on defense doesn't create new barriers against, for instance, non-EU allies as Turkey or Norway, a country I know well. So we are supportive of the EU efforts, but it has to be done in a way which don't compete, but actually complement the efforts of NATO, and therefore also focus on the need to include non-EU allies in the best possible way.
Teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much. Actually, I could have given a short reply. And Stoltenberg, I agree with the Secretary General. I could have given this brief reply, and because he conveyed the views of NATO and us. Actually, us as Turkey, generally in terms of defense, we support the cooperation between NATO and the EU. And on the other hand, we are always having a positive remark in terms of the NATO accession of the EU. And EU has some complementary decisions or thoughts, although they didn't make any concrete steps yet, but in terms of complementarity, they are taking decisions. But the issue is that NATO has some approaches towards EU countries, Finland and Sweden, which are not allies, but they are EU member states. But the EU should take this as an example. NATO's approach should be taken as an example by the EU. So the EU should show the same approach towards non-EU members, NATO ally members. That's how we can talk about true cooperation between NATO and EU, and Turkey should not be excluded from this process, and Turkey should be invited to the decision-making processes, just as we invite these countries to the NATO meetings. But generally, these activities of NATO and the EU, they are not alternatives to each other, but they should be complementary to each other. Thank you.